Hello, 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 everyone. Today we are going to solve quadratic equations using square roots. So let's take a look at our two equations here. We have 3x squared minus 12 equals 3, and we got negative x squared minus 10 equals 15. Hmm, what's common to both of those? They both have an x squared. And that's how we can determine that these are quadratic equations. Both equations only have one variable. The variable is an x, and the degree is 2. The biggest exponent is a 2. It must be a 2. So to solve quadratic equations, we're going to do very similar to what we do to solve linear equations. Remember, linear means line. So if we had 3x minus 12 equals 3, that's a linear equation. The degree is 1. But here we have a degree of 2, so we're working with quadratic equations. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to box off that 3x squared. All right. Then we need to get rid of the negative 12, the minus 12. So we're going to add 12 to both sides. When we do that, we're going to bring down the 3x squared. These are going to cancel, and we're going to get 15. But right now, I've got 3 times x squared equals 15. I don't want 3 times. So to get rid of that 3, they're timesing, so we're going to divide. And whatever we do to one side of the equal sign, we have to do to the other side. So whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other. So if I'm going to divide the left side by 3, I got to divide the right side by 3. So now I have x squared equals 5. What is that? Well, I want to look at something else first. Say you had x squared equaled 9. Well, what times itself would be 9? 3, right? 3 squared is 9, and negative 3. 3 times 3 is 9, negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. It works the same way for this. First of all, to get rid of a square, you take the square root. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So x is going to equal the square root of 5 and negative square root of 5. If you take negative square root of 5 times negative square root of 5, you're going to get 5. If you take square root of 5 times square root of 5, you're going to get 5. So we have two answers. Another way to write that answer is to use a plus minus. Same thing. All right. Let's take a look at the next one. Again, I'm going to start by boxing off the x squared term. Whatever's outside of that box has to go to the other side of the equal sign, the other side of the equation. So I have a negative 10. So to bring it to the other side, I got to add it. Now I got a negative x squared equals, because these cancel, 15 plus 10 is 25. But I don't want a negative x squared. I want x squared. So a couple ways to look at this. First of all, you can just change your signs. This is the same thing as x squared equals negative 25. But if you don't see that, you can look at it like this. That's like a negative 1 times x squared. So you can multiply or divide by a negative 1, and you'll get negative 25. So however you want to look at it. But when there's a negative in front of your variable, you could just change your signs on both sides. Now, I don't want x squared. I want x. So how do we get rid of the square? Just like we did in the last problem. We take the square root. I don't want to use that. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So now we got to go back to what we learned about imaginary numbers. We have x because x squared and the square root cancel each other. Here, when you have a negative under a square root, put an I on the outside and it becomes a positive. So this is the same thing as square root of 25 is 5, 5i. But we've got to remember that we have to do the plus and minus. 5i times 5i is 25i squared, which is negative 25. Negative 5i times negative 5i is also a negative times a negative is a positive, 25i squared, which again, I squared is negative 1, so negative 1 times 25 is negative 25. Same thing. So we have to make sure we put that plus and minus. There's two answers there. I hope that was helpful. Have an awesome day.